Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another edition of the Spurs Chat podcast. In this edition, we'll be talking about another Tottenham Hotspur defeat in the Premier League. Spurs remain 13th in the Premier League table. Now, we're live on YouTube, X, Facebook and Twitch, so please do get involved. Let us know how you are feeling right now as a Tottenham Hotspur fan. Of course, it is now the international break. We don't play for a couple of weeks and then we'll be returning to West London again away at Chelsea. Now, also, just to remind you that all episodes are available on all major audio platforms, so please do check us out on those. Now, boos at the end at Craven Cottage today, losing 2-0. Tell was over to the away end, telling fans that we must all stick together, and Postecoglou in his press conference was just really criticised Yves Bissouma. Now, as I mentioned, Fulham 2, Tottenham Hotspur 0. Muniz put Fulham 1-0 up in the 78th minute, and former Tottenham Hotspur man Ryan Sessegnon off the bench to get Fulham's second goal in the 88th minute. Now, looking at the stats here, Fulham had 57% of the ball to Tottenham's 43%. XG, Fulham 0.99 to Tottenham's 0.98. Shots, Fulham had 13 to Tottenham's 12. Shots on target, Fulham 4, Tottenham 4. Total touches inside the box, Fulham 28, Tottenham 26. Goalkeeper saves, Fulham 4, Spurs 2. Fouls, Fulham 13, Spurs 10. And corners, Fulham 6, Tottenham Hotspur 5. Now, as I mentioned, Spurs remain 13th in the Premier League table, 34 points from 29 matches. And it reads here, Spurs have won 10, we have drawn 4. And we have lost a staggering 15 out of 29 in the Premier League. Now, as per usual, I've got three very special guests with me. Wobble will be joining us shortly. He is making his way home from Craven Cottage. I am right outside the stadium here, so sorry for any background noise. We've got Terry Kim with us, all the way from New York. Terry, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Chris. I'm still buzzing off of Thursday, so nothing from today can kind of tamper my excitement about Spurs going forward. I hope you're doing well. Thank you again for having me on the pod. Adrian, it's a pleasure to meet you. Absolutely. You've been wonderful on the show thus far, and I'm really looking forward to this discussion with both of you.
Yeah, Adrian Tisato is back with us all the way from Adelaide, Australia, and Adrian is with us at the moment. 3 a.m. there, Adrian, in Adelaide. Full respect to you for getting up at this hour, talking to us on the podcast after this 2-0 defeat. But before we get into the football, how are you?
I'm well, Chris. It's not easy to sleep after a result like that. But I'm really, really pleased to be on the show. I think, well, first of all, I've watched Terry on the show before and love his analysis and his charm and wit. So I'm looking forward to sharing this with him. And Jar's a musical hero of mine, so I can't wait for him to join. An incredible bass player and artist. So it's great to always get a sense of the wide diversity and creativity of our fan base around the world. It's great to be on.
Adrian, let's start the show with you. Fulham 2, Tottenham Hotspur 0. Another very disappointing result in the Premier League for Spurs. As I mentioned, there 15 defeats in 29 matches. And I've just read a stat, or someone's just sent this to me. That Arsenal haven't even lost that amount of games in 3 seasons, and we've done it this season.
Well, it's 15 losses. Is that right, Chris? I think that's right.
Yeah.
Well, what that means is that Tottenham this season still has 1 loss to get before it matches Manchester United's 16 losses that it had in Alex Ferguson's 4th season. In that season, Manchester United finished 13th and they lost 16 matches and they were in a relegation battle. That was after Alex Ferguson had taken them to 11th and 11th in 2 out of their first 3 seasons. Now, I think it's all about the perspective that you take to this game today. What does it matter whether we finish 13th, 10th, 11th, or 12th? It means nothing. What does matter is that we are in the quarterfinal of the Europa League, and we managed to get through with a team the other night against AZ Alkmaar that had a number of players coming back from injury in our team. And today we rested key players and we took players off who have just returned from injury. We didn't have Mickey van der Ven playing at all today. We had Matthijs Tel play his first game on the wing rather than as a centre forward, where he really tried to team up with Solanke for the first time. We had Archie Gray play his first almost full game as a midfielder. We had Christian Romero not playing a full game. Still a lot of changes from the other night. And I guess Ange could have played for the win today and tried to play his best side, played played Sonny. It is 3 a.m. here. He could have played Madison. He could have played Sonny. He could have played Van der Ven next to Romero. He chose not to. I think he made the right decision. So for me, one of those games where for what is a result we're trying to achieve, which is winning the Europa League. Plus, anyone who saw that game will tell you that it should have been a penalty when we were 1-0 down, and we almost certainly would have equalised at 1-1, and that changed the game. That's my analysis of the game in an overview.
Adrian, with respect, 15 Premier League defeats in a season is not good enough for a team like Spurs. No matter what excuses are given by the manager, the fans, etc. I get the positivity. I'm extremely positive about us in the Europa League, but 15 league defeats is not good enough for a team like Spurs.
I agree with you, Chris. I agree that that's not what we're trying to achieve, but we're in the second year of a major rebuild of this squad. We are in the second year of a major rebuild of this squad, and we've had an unprecedented injury crisis. So you can't just put the number of 15 there and just talk about it without context. Context is everything. And I had low expectations for today. When I saw the starting lineup, I thought, okay, well, he's managing this squad. He's focused on the Europa League. And had we got the penalty that would have made it 1-1, we might have come away with the draw and we might have been having a different conversation.
Jar Wobble is now back home with us. Jar, how are you
Sorry
feeling
about that.
things?
Do you know what, Chris? I'm very unprofessional. I grabbed a quick bit bite to eat, mate, Sunday lunch.
No problem.
I actually bombed up from the ground and I got there at 4 o'clock. I said, can you serve? I know the bird. I said, can you serve us quick? I said, I've got to be out here at 25 past. But then it all got delayed. So apologies, mate. Very unprofessional of me. Load of crap. I just heard the last guy speak. I know some people will be positive. For me, I was there Thursday against AZ. It'd be nice that we need to build a head of steam up if we can before Frankfurt. It's no good just sort of not turning up for league games. And I would have thought he would have started with a stronger team. You know, why not start with Madison? He's the best creative player. Why not start with Odeberg? He played very well the other night. I know, you need to manage the squad better. I don't think he's done great at that, Ange. People like Spence not getting a chance he belatedly got one, should have been brought into the team earlier. It's just Tottenham. I've seen this. How many times have we seen this? Many years of this kind of performance. You know, it's Tottenham. We're in a rebuild, but I've got no faith this is going anywhere. You know, in fact, the club had better be careful. The ownership, well, I really like it, because if we persevere like this into next year, we could really be in a rally. We're very, very lucky. 3 teams are already down. How many defeats? Is that 15 defeats this season, Chris?
That's what I was just saying. I know Adrian's trying to be very positive. I get the positivity from some Spurs fans, but I just said, Jar, that 15 Premier League defeats at this stage of the season, for me, is unacceptable, and it does seem very samey. It does seem very predictable, some of these games. And I know that we haven't spoken about the starting 11 yet. I feel like that's going to be a big subject on this podcast this evening, because we go into an international break. This is the 6th consecutive time now going into an international break. We have lost 6 out of the last 6. That is unacceptable as well. And I don't get the team selection today. Why are you not playing your strongest possible 11? I get it if we had a cup game midweek, but we don't. It's the international break. We should have gone strong today, in my opinion, but we'll talk about that shortly. Jar, we'll come back to you shortly. Terry, let's get your opinion on today's defeat.
So first of all, Jar, welcome. It's a pleasure to meet you. How
you doing? Nice to meet you.
Very well, thank you. Chris, you might not want to hear this. I'm going to echo a lot of Adrian's thoughts here. I thought it was interesting watching this game, knowing that I don't think the primary objective was to win the game. I think the primary objective of today was to come out without sustaining any new injuries and have a lot of rotation, which is why I think we saw the starting lineup that we did. I think for the most part, we achieved that. We had a little bit of a scare when Romero went down for a minute there. I would have liked to have seen Solanke not play the full 90 because he's played the last 2 games fully. So it's now past 3. So I think primary objective achieved. I think the secondary objective of today was to try out some new ideas and to try players in new positions. And as Adrian mentioned, we've all been asking to see Archie Gray in midfield. We finally got to see him in the pivot. It was great to see that. I personally wanted to see Tell on the right wing to see how he would fare there. We got to see that in the second half when Son came on, and he wasn't great, but at least we got to see that. Then I think our third objective really was the result of the game. And if we go through, honestly, if I look through the whole game, I don't think 2-0 I think that flatters Fulham. Fulham definitely played better in the first half. In the second half, I mean, we came out so bright with Son and Bergvall out there. It really felt more like the result should have been a Tottenham 1-0 win rather than a 2-0 loss. I mean, that first goal came completely against the run of play. When that ball hit Maddison in the back of his leg and Fulham got a couple of chances there, that seemed to shift the momentum a bit. Muniz coming on really was a game changer for Fulham. But over the entire course of the game, I honestly think we played better than Fulham. And the positive that I take out of that is that we're starting to see some of the old Tottenham coming back, and we're starting to see kind of the potential of what we can be when we have everyone healthy and everyone's back in the starting lineup.
Terry, at the moment, there's a lot of very disappointed Spurs fans, and the Spurs away end at the very end of the game booed and Postecoglou and the players off. What do you make of all this booing? Because we've seen it and heard it so many times this season.
I mean, it's completely understandable. I mean, again, I always feel worst for the away supporters, especially to feel like we were in control in that second half and then to kind of give it away like we did in that second half. I think a lot of the disappointment also comes in the fact that what did you say? It was the 6th time we're going into an international break on the back of a loss. It's just. It's such a sour taste to sit with for 2 weeks, for 2.5 weeks. So I completely understand the frustration. I think the booing is justified. But again, I think if we kind of get past the emotion of this immediate result, if we're honest with ourselves, like there are silver linings in there. There is a lot to be positive about, and we still have a lot to be excited about with the Europa League. I get the 15. I get the 15 losses. That's a crazy number. But like Adrian said, we have to take that in context. The vast majority of those losses came without our 2 center backs, without our goalkeeper, without some of our midfield, without Solanke. It's like that has to be taken in context. It hurts more because we just lost, and especially with the way that we lost like that. But we do have a lot to look forward to.
Adrian, before we come to you, we're just going to hear a short clip now from Ange Postecoglou. This is what he made of the game.
And thanks for joining us. Ended 2-0 at Craven Cottage. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, disappointing loss. It was a tight game. We knew it'd be a tight game. And up until they scored, I thought we were kind of the better team at that point. We had some big chances to go one up, and Vic didn't really have a save to make up until then. But we conceded a soft goal, and we've done that a number of times this year, and then that allows the opposition to sort of grow into the game.
Yeah, 75 minutes on the clock, 0-0. We're just about where we want to be, aren't we? And hopefully that's where we want to nick it, but obviously they go ahead and do that. Yeah,
look, like I said, up until that point, we especially in the second half, we started really positively. I thought, first half, we were good without the ball, but, with the ball, we just lacked a little bit of sort of calmness and cohesion. So, but I thought that was better in the second half. Like I said, we had a couple of really good chances to get our first goal, but even within that, even at 0-0, we shouldn't be conceding goals like we have.
Must be frustrating for you, Ange, because I know you want to push up this league, don't you?
Oh, very, mate. I don't like losing, and we've lost too much this year, and I've said that to the boys, that we can't accept that. That's just not good enough for a club like ours to lose many games we have this year, so that's disappointing, and we need to address it.
Quick one on Archie in that midfield area. I mean, we started the second half with two teenagers in a Premier League game in the Central area.
Yeah, I thought Archie was good. We know that sort of, he's a player who's very adaptable, and there was an opportunity to get him in there. It was important for him to get some game time today because he kind of hasn't played the last couple, and obviously when we get back, we've got the kind of turnarounds again of Thursday, Sunday. So, it was good for him to sort of get some experience in the middle of the park. I thought he did well.
Thanks, Ange.
Thanks.
Adrian, what do you make of Andrew's comments there, and what have you made of his time at Spurs? I know he's had a lot of injury problems this season, but I've got to say this because it reflects a lot of the comments in the comments section right now as we're live on YouTube, and I've got to, say certain things because a number of people said it to me in the away end today at Craven Cottage. A lot of people are not impressed anymore with Ange Postecoglou. How do you feel about him?
I have always been positive about the fact that Ange has come to the club, and I think I've seen enough in this season and a half when we've played at our best, when we've been at full strength, that tells me that we have a positive future ahead with him if he's given time to build a squad. I think it's impossible to consider his tenure without the context of the squad that he's had. I'll come back to the fact that we had Harry Kane scoring 30-plus goals every season for almost a decade until Ange arrived. And with about 3 days to go before his first Premier League game as manager, we lost Harry Kane. And we didn't have Solanke that season. We were relying on Richarlison, who didn't play much of last season. I thought what we saw in the first 10 games last year gave us an insight into what's possible at Tottenham if he's given time to build a squad. And building a squad means developing the young talent that we have, that we've brought up through the academy or that we've brought in, and the smattering of senior players like Solanke and Maddison and others who we've also brought in to bring some experience. But ultimately, given where we were when he took the club over, it's clear to me that this is a rebuild project. It's always been labelled as a rebuild project. And so when you think about where we were at the 11th game last year when we played that extraordinary match against Chelsea that we lost 4-1 and went down to 9 players, James Maddison was the most important creative midfield in the Premier League in those first 10 games. And in the first half, he did a very serious ankle injury, and then he was out for 3 months. He was the key central creative midfielder in our team. We lost Van de Ven in the same game in the first half, and we lost a couple of key players through suspensions. It derailed our first season. Now, my view is, if we had Harry Kane in that team, we would have been able to withstand those losses that happened in that 11th game. He still would have been scoring goals, even though we were finding it more difficult because we'd lost key players in our team. And I think with that perspective, you would say I think if we had Kane last year, we would have finished top 2 or top 3. But with all the challenges that Ange had, he inherited a team that finished 8th the season before with Harry Kane in it. And he took us to 5th in his first season, despite all of the difficulties. So to me, I don't understand the toxicity around last season at all among the fans. I thought it was an absolutely outstanding effort given the playing squad he had and where he'd started and what he'd inherited. Then we come to this season, which is his second season in the rebuild. Well, what's happened? We had some frustrating results early where we should have put sides away, but we didn't finish. Didn't get enough points from early in the season when we had a fully fit squad. We struggled in a couple of away games and home. We did some Dr. Tottenham, which was, giving Ipswich their first win and so forth. That's not the first time that's happened at this club. That's happened under Conte. That's happened under Mourinho. Ange Postecoglou is not the first manager who's had us lose to Crystal Palace away 1-0 or lose to a low side at home when we should beat them. And then, of course, we had the injury crisis. And what I see out of the injury crisis is that I don't think any manager would have done much better in that situation. And of course, there's the immediate refrain that I hear from supporters, which is, all those injuries are Ange's fault. Well, hold on a minute. We play Man City away. We beat them 4-0. We're in 6th position. We're 3 points from 4th place. And our goalkeeper and one of our key on-field leaders breaks his ankle in the game. And it triggers a catastrophic 3 months in which we are playing 2 games a week, every week, with barely 11 fit players. Now, what are the positives that come from that, Chris? Well, the positives that come from that are that because of those injuries, it forced us to play players like Bergvall and Gray all the time. And guess what? We've uncovered diamonds. They got, in 3 months, 3 years worth of investment. And now we have uncovered in Bergvall one of the emerging great midfielders in the Premier League. We've just seen Archie Gray play his first game in midfield today. And we've uncovered other talent. So, and we've done all of that without Romero, without Van der Ven, without Solanke, without Mattis, with all these players missing that are crucial to the side. So, in my opinion, anyone who judges Ange Postecoglou at this stage of the rebuild, given what's happened, is being it's an entirely valid view. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely respect the opinion of those supporters and those commentators who have been critical of him.
Adrian, sorry to interrupt. I don't know whether you're reading in the comments coming in. There is a lot of criticism on your positivity towards Spurs and Ange Postecoglou right now.
It's great. I accept it. I think we should be having the debate. So what's the name me a manager who's going to want to come to Spurs next season if we sack Ange? Who's going to come? What are we a club that managers are knocking down the door to come and manage? I don't think so. I don't think any serious manager wants to come to Spurs. That's my view. People keep mentioning Iraola, Silva. I don't see any of those managers wanting to come to Tottenham. So what's the solution? I say we stick tough, we stick together, we accept that we're in a rebuild. I've said it before, it took Alex Ferguson 7 seasons to win his first title at Manchester United, and they finished 11th and 13th in 3 of his 4 seasons. 3 of his first 4 seasons. So I just think people need to take a breath, accept that it's been a horrendous season. Those who dislike Ange will blame him for all of it, and they'll blame the chairman and the board. But I don't think. Look at our playing squad, Chris. Look at our playing squad, filled with kids kids and other and more senior players, some of whom are okay.
Yeah,
but not great.
I do feel like that is the wrong term to use about not liking Ange, because I really like Ange Postecoglou. I want it to work for him. But as Craig said there, 15 Premier League defeats at this stage of the season is unacceptable. No matter what excuses, no matter what injuries you've had. Every single Premier League team has to deal with injuries. Yes, we've had a lot, but 15 Premier League defeats. And, like we'll come on to shortly, talking about the starting 11, I feel like Ange Postecoglou needs to go a lot stronger in a game like this. Jar, let's bring you in at this point, because do you agree with what Adrian's saying? I love Adrian's positivity about, going forward, but is it fair to say that if we weren't in the Europa League still, we've still got that Europa League dream alive to go all the way to the final and lift a first European trophy in 41 years, lift a first trophy at the club for 17 years, that dream is still alive, but we can't keep losing Premier League games like we have been.
No, it's a familiar. They go back well before Ange's time. Just how many times have I been to Craven Cottage and seen us get turned over, or QPR, or teams. All due respect, you would be expecting to beat. In London derbies, when it's all it's as much about winning the second ball as much as anything else. There's always a bit of a lack of desire. For me, we're sticking by a guy. Whereas Levy normally, as soon as the heat comes on, gets rid of managers. He's going to stick by the one guy that probably should have gone up the road last year. I would not have been unhappy if Ange had walked last year. It's got nothing to do with like him, don't like him. I quite like kind of, surly Aussies. I don't mind, I'm used to them being good at sport, but if you look, he wrote down some of what the fella said there. We tend to blame the board. Yes, we blame the board. You've had injuries. You've gone into a season understaffed, especially knowing that with Ange, hamstrings will pop. There'll be soft tissue injuries, and we've ended up being light. We were a centre half light. We were a number 6 light. We're still a number 6 light. We haven't got a proper holding player. We rave about Bergvall and Gray, and Bergvall especially is looking like a nugget, looking good. But is he any better than the youngsters coming through at Chelsea? So we're starting to clutch at straws now, I wonder about the fact we just concede soft goals. Today, that first goal, I think it was Odegaard lost possession as he ran out. I might be wrong. I was behind the goal, couldn't quite see. But I noticed at the end of the phase of play before we're looking to run the ball out when he could easily have cleared it, So I'm very well. I'm of an age. I remember very well. Alex Ferguson was going to get the sack. He was definitely going to get the sack, but he didn't. He come very close to it. They stuck with him, and it all come good. I remember the same thing to Howard Kendall at Everton. So it can happen. What bothers me with Ange, there's a lot of emotion. That Chelsea game we all hark back to when we got beat 4-1. There was so much emotion in the air with that, dangerously so. So players get red cards, everything gets a bit hyped up, and they kind of had our measure that night, and we got beat, and we played with a 9-man high line and everything, and it's all very brave, and of course it all gets a bit like, this thing with Ange. I've got my principles, and and it's going to be like, so it's kind of like the Charge of the Light Brigade or something, and it's a bit cult-like now, so you've got to just keep on believing. We do know from the past that sometimes you stick with a guy, it comes good. I think with this guy could take you down. I felt we'd be in a relegation positions. I did say that last season, at the end of last season. I felt it could be a very poor year, and it was. If you look at what, and he's not a dislikable. Sometimes I like the guy, it's not like just having some pathological dislike for him. But you look at some of the sort of tactical, lack of kind of nuance with the tactics at times. It's concerning, there's a complete lack of solidity there, and it worries me when people are ideologues, and so you have to believe in the man, really. It's all about believing in that guy. It's a kind of believing in the ideology, and that if it's typical cult kind of situation. If you don't believe, then there's something wrong with you. You need to believe harder, because if you believe harder, everything will come good. And I don't see that, you know. I just see you can't get away from the fact he's not played in the Premier League is something else, very competitive. German league as well. I don't think this year is a particularly vintage year in the Premier League, but I think the Bundesliga is pretty strong, stronger than people might kind of admit. The Italian league, you know, he's never played there. It reminds me of a boxer coming out, you know, playing quick combinations, and as you start to meet better boxers, you'll get picked off. They won't be impressed with that. People will hear about you. They know that they need to either get right up in your face, deny you, you know, like as in football, you start pressing, or you just stay out of range, you tire out, you don't really know what to do, and you get picked off. And today, you know, that's not progress for me. You know, it was a well taken goal, the first goal with Fulham, you know, but just typical sort of Tottenham. I think, and don't get, you know where I'm coming from, Chris, where, you know, I'm not an Ange supporter, you know. This has been a long time. You know, we look wide open. We're not doing the basics. You know, I've seen it before because it's Tottenham, because that's the culture of Tottenham. Tottenham's not a serious club as compared to Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester United. A mate was reminding me earlier, do you remember when Blackburn won the league and they had to go to Liverpool, and Man United were vying for the league, and Liverpool still beat Blackburn, and it was down to West Ham having to beat Man United on that final day, so Blackburn won. You know, because they're seeped in professionalism, Liverpool. Our club's not. So have I seen worse than Ange? Maybe the Aussie period, where I remember we played at Man City, and I remember looking at the game thinking, where's our defence? And we literally didn't have a defence. And there was a bit of a debate then, and it's only Tottenham has this debate. Oh, is it kind of good to defend? And, you know, do you really need to defend, or can you just attack and score? It's a very naive kind of debate. I've got no doubt this guy will be gone probably before the end of the season. So this is all kind of academic. It's all a bit of a moot point. I think he'll be gone. I don't see. We all know when we meet a decent team, and Frankfurt are a decent team, we're unlikely to go through. Love to be wrong. Would love Ange to have this to be part of a 10-year reign. We'd all love to be wrong, but this is pretty crap. And today was really just typical crap. You know, what did we do? We weren't the better team in that game.
Yeah.
You know, we matched them for long periods. You know, but there was only ever going to be one winner. How many times did we test their keeper? I think there was a shot from Tell from out on the right, and the keeper pushed it out. It was a good shot, and it would come back in. I think it was Solanke put it over the bar. You know, we were in the game for a long period, but I must admit, when Romero went off, and what your man's saying about injuries is true, especially with the centre halves, we've missed them. When Romero went off, you felt, oh dear, you watch Archie Gray coming back into defence again, and there wasn't any the defending was quite weak leading up to the goal with Muniz, whoever it was who scored. It was the replacement for Jimenez came on, wasn't it? So, yeah, same old Tottenham. You know, there's a real lack of a winning desire there.
And that's an issue. And that's an issue, Jar. When you say the same old Tottenham, that is an issue for me, because Ange Postecoglou this season, and, you know, as I said to Adrian earlier on, I really want this to work for Ange Postecoglou, but will it work for him? Because how many times has he come out and said this season we are not at the levels that we should be? That is on the manager, in my opinion. And I know there are a lot of negative Spurs fans out there, and I feel like a lot of them cannot wait for this to go wrong for Ange Postecoglou. I said this at length on the last podcast, because I feel like a lot of people say, oh, it's all going to go wrong. And, you know, even when Ange was appointed, you know, a lot of people then said, who is this guy? You know, we don't want him. We wanted, you know, X,
and Chris, I've got to say, he's not done himself, sorry to interrupt you, but you know what I'm like. He's not done himself any favours with what he was saying last week, you know, about it's kind of, how dare you insult me, you know. Well, we all get fucking insulted. And look, he's been in the game, 27 years or something as a manager? I've been in my game, I don't know, getting it 50 fucking years. So, you know, I'm not going to turn around to people. I've been in my business 50 years, so I must know something. Well, I do know something, you know, but other people have other ways of doing things. Things change. The reason I'm still about is because I'm very open to, you know, to new things. This kind of thing that, how dare you criticise me? And you know, and there is a kind of, it's kind of, I'm a football person, you know, and only other football people would understand me. Punters wouldn't. Well, actually, as I said the other night on another podcast, you know, all this debate about Tottenham, what is a football club? The nearest thing I can come to is with the continuity of a club, because it's continuity that counts, is the supporters. So we are Tottenham, you know. They might have the business, but we are Tottenham Hotspur. We, the fans, we're Tottenham, you know. And we've been badly let down, and we're entitled to have a point of view, you know, totally happy with it. And you know, it's getting a bit, it's it's not a great relationship between him and the fans, you know, with all the stuff we've made. You know, we've been badly managed, a badly managed club on the football side. I'm talking with the ownership as much as anything for many, many years. It goes back before Nick even, you know, they're not covered themselves in glory. They're obviously really only interested in money and only really interested in profit. They're not interested in glory. No matter what they say, they're not interested in glory. They're not interested in winning. They're not interested in success. Their pride doesn't hurt. When I come out of, and I'm a proper Tottenham boy, you know that, home and away for many years, and you come out listening to them singing Sessignon left you cost your shit and Tottenham get battered everywhere. It shouldn't be happening. Just shouldn't be happening, you know. And I would just love to see someone there. Do you know what? Someone like Scotty Parker, someone with a bit of fucking grit. There might be a huge amount of romance. We always do better with these Dow kind of guys that don't say very much at all. I'm not saying Ange isn't Dow. I know, because I keep saying, hope I'm wrong, but I don't think he's the guy. You know, I don't think any of the owners either, for that matter. But that was very poor. We have this is week in, week out. 15 defeats this season. You know, I don't see any signs this team would ever learn to really be hard to beat. You know, the longer the game goes on. Before Fulham scored, you just felt the crowd notching up. They started to sense it, as you do in football. I was with the Fulham fans, and they scored. You know, there was only ever really going to be one winner. Tottenham weren't ever going to really show up in that game, and they're a loser team. You know, with a guy that's, you know, they seem to like him. Oh, that's one thing I will say, unless the club's doing a fantastic sort of PR job, getting the players to say they like him. They genuinely seem to sort of like him, you know. But pardon us fans, I don't go to every away game, Chris. You do, don't you? You go everywhere, you know. You know, our support is actually, I tend to think, is actually underrated and is probably the best in the country for me, you know. They're very, very loyal and deserve better than this. This is crap. And you know what? I'm afraid you don't get years now the way Ferguson did. You just don't. People look at Areola at Bournemouth. He's been there the same amount of time and what he's done. Silva today, these are proper, nuanced football managers. You know, they with nuance. They can work at that high level and calibrate their teams tactically. You know, and this is the era really of tactical nous. This thing of all-out pressing is a bit old-fashioned now. You know, that's already out of fashion. Players tend to get injured. Everyone gets a bit burnt out. It's all a bit full on. And at the end of the day, you'll always get picked off with teams who have tactical nous, sit a bit deep. You know, and that's coming back into vogue. So you need a bit of both. You know, you need nuanced manager, and I don't think we have a nuanced manager. So, you know, I would love to be wrong, but today, and I'll shut up after this. Start with your strongest team. Try and build up a head of steam before Frankfurt. Not go into an international break again with a loss. But no, It happens. You know, I didn't hear what he said. I couldn't get the sound up on him. You know, I'm not sure what he said. I'm sure it was anything too sort of interesting, you know. So it's pretty dull. I think I can't see how we're going to beat a decent team, you know. But hey ho, I might be wrong, and I'd love to be. But I think it's all academic. He'll be gone. I would have thought by the end of the season he'll go off, and we'll have someone else in. I mean, Paratici never fancied him, did he? He wanted Enrique, and look what Enrique's doing at PSG. And you think, well, that's the kind of manager, good modern manager, you know. I'll leave it with there, Chris, for the time. I'm hogging it as I always do. Sorry, mate.
That's all right. Terry, let's come to you. On that point, when I do go to every home and away game, I speak to a lot of Spurs fans, and I know a lot of very positive fans who have been behind Ange Postecoglou from the very start, have been completely behind him all this season, throughout all the injury problems. But I do feel, and I said this on a media interview the other day, I feel like week by week now, Ange Postecoglou is slowly losing fans.
Yeah.
And if we don't win the Europa League, if we go out of the Europa League, like Jar said there, do you think that Ange will see out the season if we do not win the Europa League?
Yeah, I do. And I'm not quite in the Ange cult, as Jaw says, but I've consistently backed him this whole time, and I will continue to back him as long as he's our manager and as long as the players are still playing for him. And clearly they're doing that. Where I am kind of wavering a bit is, instead of kind of framing the question as Ange in or Ange out, I've been kind of asking myself.
And I don't do that, by the way, because people can sit in the middle and have an opinion rather than sitting in a box of being in or out. I don't like that myself. Me too.
Which is what I'm about to say. What I'm saying is that I don't ask myself that question. What I ask myself is, hypothetically, if we go on and we win the Europa League, right, and Ange stays on as our manager, at the start of next season, would I be excited about the start of next season? And I'm surprised by my own answer, and I'm a little sad to say, I don't think I would be excited about next season because of two reasons. One, this Kevin Danso injury. That's now 5 out of 6 center backs who have sustained a major leg injury over the season. That's not an accident, and that's not bad luck anymore. I do think that's down to our playing style. So that's a pattern. So you have to expect that pattern will continue, maybe through the rest of this year and into next year as well. So these injuries, I don't see an end to those injuries coming because of the playing style. And then two games that really stick out to me, that the first leg at Alkmaar and the second leg of the Carabao Cup against Liverpool, our two biggest games up to that point, to not be able to motivate the players. A lot of that is on the players. I think most of it's on the players. But to not be able to get the players up for that game, especially the Alkmaar game, where they had 8 days of rest in between, and Alkmaar had a weekend game before that. It's games like that make me worry. Can we consistently compete at the high level? Because you have to be able to win those big matches, whether it's in the Premier League or it's in Europe or it's in cup competitions. And it doesn't seem like that ability is there. Now, if he's able to see us all the way through to the Europa League final and win that will give him a lot of credit in the bank, rightly so. To your original question of, do I think if we lose against Frankfurt, will he be our manager? Yeah, I do. I think the board, and I think rightly so, have made the decision that at least through the end of the season, we're going to stick with him no matter what. What is the upside to Ryan Mason or Matty Wells coming in as an interim manager? I don't see that.
He's had a lot of sympathy from the board, though, Terry, hasn't he? And also a lot of sympathy from a lot of the Tottenham Hotspur fan base, because over the years we've seen managers be sacked, through losing a lot less games than Postecoglou has in the Premier League.
He has, but he's a project manager, right? He was brought in to build a project. You can't build a project in a year and a half or a year and a quarter. He started getting criticism at the end of last season. I mean, if you're going to bring in a project manager, let him finish the project or let him see through the project. I don't think it's justified. I think Mourinho and Conte, they received criticism because of some of their behavior, but they were expected to be win now managers. we brought players in, experienced players in, for them to win now. Whereas if you look at some of the squad, and I know not everyone agrees with this, but we've brought in a younger squad to build a project, to build a sustainable team and a sustainable squad going forward. And by all accounts, it's looked really good. Like Adrian said, Bergvall, Gray, I think they're two of the signings of the season. I don't think they're just great signings for us. I think they're two future superstars for Tottenham, for their respective countries. I think Wilson Odegaard shows a lot of promise. I do think this criticism is unjust. I completely understand where it's coming from. But for one, just personally, I'm going to stick by him as long as the players are still behind him.
Adrian, I suppose a lot of the comments today and a lot of us, I suppose, could be blamed, which Ange Postecoglou calls outside noise. In his embargoed press conference, he spoke heavily about criticism, and he said, would a plumber, a lawyer, a police officer, and so on, would they get criticised like a football manager like he does with 26 years experience? What do you make of his comments?
Well, I don't think he quite said that, Chris, and I think it's been taken as if he says that anyone who's been in a career for 26, 27 years should not be criticised. He didn't say that. What he was talking about, as I understood, was the nature of the criticisms being made. So in other words, the kind of notion that's often bandied about, which is, clueless, etc. The kind of suggestion that it's as if he's walked in off the street and never managed a side before and has no idea what he's doing. Now, I thought that's what he was saying, rather than, you can't criticise me because I've been managing for 26 years. In fact, I think my memory is that he said, and he said plenty of times, yes, criticise me. It's the question is the nature of the criticism. And frankly, he's also said fans can feel and ultimately say what they want and express those feelings.
He called it cheap and shallow, but I do find, Adrian, right, and let me just say that I am a huge Ange Postecoglou fan, but whenever he does receive criticism from the fans and from some of the media, he doesn't like it.
Yeah, I think that's a true statement, and I think that's probably human nature. The truth is that these guys have to do, particularly when he was in that 3-month period of 2 games a week, every week, they all have to do it. But when the pressure's on and you're in an injury crisis and you're losing games, it must be difficult to stand there and give 2 or 3 3, 4, 5 press conferences a week. And just from a human to human point of view, I think there's a fishbowl going on here where we all sit here living our ordinary lives without that kind of scrutiny. And we don't necessarily acknowledge the pressure that kind of role has. And, I think the truth is that one of the things that is appealing about him, I think, is that you kind of don't get management speak. You don't kind of get a whole bunch of platitudes. He's quite open and frank about things. And the truth is we get to see a real human expressing themselves, including times when he's being far too defensive. But you've got to I think you've got to put yourself in the person's shoes. I find it surprising. In any other organisation, you'd have from time to time, you would have the chairman or the CEO of the organisation coming out and talking about what the overall plan is for the year. What is our strategy? What is our 5-year strategy? What are we trying to achieve here? Yes, we're in a rebuild. So what we're actually doing this season is we're trying to generate a whole lot of stuff going on with the youth in the team, and we've had an injury crisis. But in football, we just put the manager out there, and he speaks for the club at every level. Yep. And that's not just about Ange; that's about all the managers. I figure it's a challenging environment in which to present yourself day in, day out in front of the press when it's going when it's not going well. And I accept, that there have been times when he's been defensive and kicked back and not just kind of copped it. But other times I think it's been refreshing because he's quite honest and quite reasonable, and he accepts. I think he's accepted criticism lots of times as well, and said, results have been poor, and I take responsibility for that. He's always taken responsibility for that, and I think he should have credit for that.
Adrian, how confident are you that Spurs are going to go all the way to the Europa League final?
I wouldn't say I'm confident, Chris. I think I'm surprised that the bookies have us favourite, given what's happened this season. Having said that,
I only asked that question because I just believe that any other manager, no matter whether it's the Spurs, a big club like Tottenham, you cannot be, I'm going to say that line again, you cannot be losing 15 Premier League games in a season, especially, when we've got 9 games left of the Premier League season, sitting in 13th. I believe that is keeping him in his job. And I also go back to say that over the years, the amount of people that have come on this podcast and said, well, I'd rather finish mid-table if it meant we won a trophy. If that happened, fantastic news. Everyone's going to be super happy, and we may go into next season with Ange, without Ange. Who knows what's going to happen in the future? But if it's about winning a trophy, it would be a fantastic season, in my opinion. But if you now don't win the Europa League and you finish in 13th in the Premier League table, regardless of the injuries, surely this season will go down as a disaster.
Well, it's got to be taken in context, Chris. We've won 2 league titles in 142 years. You know what I want as a Tottenham supporter who's been following the club since 1981? I want us to win the league title. And I want us to be vying for the league title every season. That's what I want. So I've never taken the view that I'm happy for us to finish at 13th just in case, but I'm happy if we win the Carabao Cup. No. I've just like Jar's probably been, I imagine, hi Jar, we didn't speak at the start. I'm Adrian, great to meet you. I mean, I'm not a supporter who's sat here and happily just gone along and thought how great it is that every once in a while we might vie for a cup. I mean, the last FA Cup we won was 1991, and big deal. So we won the Carabao Cup in 2008. So to me, what I want, whether it's with Ange Postecoglou or whether it's with a different manager, what I actually want is for the club, and that's from the chairman and the board to all of the supporters, to accept that something fundamental has to change at Tottenham if we want to achieve the thing we all dream of, which is for us to actually be a big club, because we're talked about as one of the 6 big clubs, but it's meaningless. It's meaningless. Yes, we might have the best stadium, and yes, we might have one of the biggest supporter bases, but we've won 2 league titles in 142 years. So what I actually want is no more sacking a manager after 18 months because they haven't got instant results. What I want is a genuine rebuild project where we're bringing in really, really good youth and we're developing youth, and then we're adding to that experienced, talented players. Now, I thought that was the project we were on. I still think that's the project we're on. I agree that people will have different views as to whether Ange Postecoglou is the manager to carry that project through. But if we keep thinking about this moment or next week or the week after, and our lives get turned upside down after a 2-0 loss against Fulham when we should have been 1-1 after we should have received a penalty, and we're not taking into account what this project is about, then we just continue to kind of, it's like we eat each other alive. And I'm sick of it. We had Jose Mourinho came and coached us after all the success that he had. He's since gone on. The first club he coached at afterwards, Roma, he took them to win in Europe, and then should have won the next season in Europe again. Then we went, okay, we'll have Nuno. Okay, so Nuno comes in. We sacked him after, was it 8 games? 8 games. He's now got Nottingham Forest in 3rd place. So, okay, we got rid of Nuno and we brought in one of the most successful managers in the world ever, Antonio Conte. Didn't last 2 seasons. And what's he doing now? He's got Napoli at top of the ladder in the Serie A. So at some point, there has to be some sobriety, some self-reflection in this club. There has to be an understanding that you either dig in together, just like England did in the Second World War, when the rest of Europe was collapsing as the Nazis were coming and taking over all of Europe. But they didn't turn the Second World War around overnight. They endured a long, long sustain of bombing in London. And who was leading them? Churchill. Churchill had been a disaster. He took England to Gallipoli, where a whole lot of Australians died on the beaches. You either take a long-term view and have a strategy and then actually see that through, or you remain a fickle club that will always be thinking short-term, sacking managers within 18 months or 2 years. And the truth is, in the second year of the rebuild, with the injuries we've had, it's not surprising we're 13th. But I'll come back to the question you asked me, Chris. Will we win the Europa League? Who knows? Have we got a chance to win it? Yes, we're in the quarterfinals. And I'm not going to sit here if we win the Europa League and go, everything's fine, everything's great, Ange is the greatest manager of all time, at all. I was going to start the incense and the candles, just to sort of really enhance the feeling of a cult over here. But it's not a cult at all. I would be saying this about any manager who was sitting there in Ange's role right now, who had had a difficult second season, and where we'd shown that we were struggling to find cohesion in the team because we'd had lots of disruption and haven't been able to put the same team on the park 2 weeks in a row for most of the season, or for a decent proportion of the season. And I'd be looking to next season. I'd be absolutely wanting us to win the Europa League this year, but I'd be looking to next season and I'd be saying, okay, let's see what this guy can do next year now that he's got 2 years under his belt. And he will have developed some of these players further, and they will have really, and the truth is, in a rebuild, you test players out, and players are going to fall by the wayside. It looks to me like Bissouma's not going to fit in this system, and he's going to fall by the wayside. I can't see Richarlison continuing on. So there's players that Ange has inherited, where he's had to test them in this system, and it hasn't worked. And so others will come to the fore, and they have. And this is not about Ange for me. This is not an Ange cult. This is a long-term strategy cult that I want. That's what I'm interested in. I want our club to settle down. I want supporters to go out and have a walk around the block and get some sunshine. And it's easy here in Australia, right? So sunshine all the time. Adelaide, one of the sunniest places in the world. So I get that. But we just need to take a breath, get behind our team for the next 3 weeks, as all the fans do. But we need to come together and focus on what the season is now about. What's happened has happened. What we now have is the opportunity to win the Europa League, something we haven't done, I think, since 1984. Let's do that. Now, I accept that it's looking unlikely. To me, I would say more likely than not we'll get knocked out by Frankfurt. But hey, we didn't even see Mickey van der Ven in the side today. We conceded 2 soft goals, but we weren't at full strength back there. You have to see these things for what they are, in my opinion. And I'm with Jar. It's infuriating to me that when we've played this press and we've been exposed and we've got this open midfield and we're then vulnerable at the back, I'm absolutely with you. It drives me mad. I'm Italian. Italians, we're into man-on-man defending. We are about having solidity whenever we don't have the ball. So don't get me wrong. I grew up on Catenaccio. So it's just not, it's not about Ange. What it's about is just taking a long-term approach to solving what is a 142-year problem.
Jar, let's come to you. Let's talk about the starting 11 today. And I said earlier, this is where I think that it all went wrong, in my opinion. Too many changes. 7 changes today from the team that beat AZ on Thursday. I get the fact that you've got to rotate a squad and use your squad, use your players, but we are going into the international break, and I would have thought that the team would have been stronger to face this Fulham side, who have had a very impressive season, I might add. Vicario, Spence, Romero as captain, Davis, Udogi, Bentancur, Bissouma, Gray, Johnson, Solanke and Tell. And the sub-bench today, Kinski, Van der Ven, Poro, Sarr, Bergveld, Maddison, Odegaard, Son and Scarlett. Now, of course, Jar, you were in the stadium at Craven Cottage today. When you saw this starting 11 come out, how are you feeling?
I couldn't believe it. Got to the game. I didn't know the team. I actually forgot to check it today, and it was me mate, who's a big Fulham fan, who said, "Have you heard Tottenham's team?" And he was amazed, and he was happy. They were all happy because they were really happy Maddison wasn't on the bench, wasn't on the pitch. They were happy that Bergveld wasn't on the pitch because everyone's starting now to see him as a player, you know. And they were very happy Son wasn't there. Now Son's been off form. I thought you can't say he didn't have a go on Thursday night and had a couple of assists, of course. One of them a bit lucky, up his arse, but he, you know, he was actually like game for it. And against Fulham, you know, I certainly would have had Bergveld in, and I would have had Maddison and Odegaard, because Odegaard scored a couple of goals. Try and get ahead of steam up, you know. But this guy, I didn't like it. A lot of Ange, what I see with Ange, I just don't like. It's you know, I don't like the fact I see the way we play has, in my estimation, caused a lot of injuries. The subs he makes, was playing with fire the other night, taking Maddison and Odegaard off. You know, taking Maddison off when we really may well have needed another goal. I thought was a mistake. We got through it okay. Today, you're kind of encouraging the opposition, really. So, what the Fulham fans thought tells you everything, you know. But then again, I'm sure Ange's view, you know, and I did take it what his comments were, I thought, quite arrogant, you know, about, you know, I've been in football these years and it's always these people that criticise, they've got the benefit of hindsight, you know. I'm not sure what that means, you know. Does that mean that, yeah, we can say after a game that in hindsight we were crap, you know? And today so in hindsight after the game, I'm saying we were crap and should have probably started with another team. So with all this talk with the managers, I get with Adrian, we've let too many managers go too quickly. But as my son, my younger boy, both my sons Tottenham fans, he said to me many months ago, "You know what, Dad? Levy, this would be the one manager he should bin really quick, but he's going to stick with him." And so it's turned out to be. And hats off to Levy, because Levy always makes the worst calls, you know, like sacking Mourinho before the final, not keeping George Graham on when we played the Gooners in the semi-final of the FA Cup, and they were all worried because they knew George Graham might be able to do something against them. But no, we had to rush through getting Hoddle in. Yeah, it's bad call after bad call, really. But this guy, I would like to see a manager who kind of has some idea about defence, you know, defending, especially in the midfield, you know. So I see this thing of set plays and a very set attitude about how the game should be played. I don't see nuance. I think you have to be reactive to some extent, and I think that comes with a bit of humility, really, you know. So that's kind of where it's at today. You're as we often do, you're giving the opposition a fillip. You're giving them some inspiration. You're encouraging the opposition. Same way when we give the ball away, the way we do, so tamely, the way Odegaard gave it away in the phase leading up to that first Fulham goal. You just encourage the opposition rather than be completely mean, you know, and not give the opposition anything. That's warfare. You don't give any kind of encouragement to them, you know. So, as you can probably hear, very deflated. At least we were still in the Europa, and I hope we can pull it off. My heart, I told you yesterday, Chris, I had a good feeling about today. I felt Thursday would be the start. I thought today he would play a strong team again. The team would have a bit of belief, and I thought they'd take it to Fulham a bit. But you can't play a game like that and not make anything. You know, we hardly tested their keeper that I remember, as it was only that long shot from Tell. And you know, you're back down. Really, for me, it's all about the owners. It's not about the manager now anyway. The whole thing, if we could please God, if they would give over control of the football side to somebody else, that would be marvellous, because that's the thing that really needs to change. And I've said this before, and it often upsets people mentioning Chelsea, but I saw, there's a thing on YouTube of John Terry talking about the effect of Mramovic. Now, we know there was a lot of money, they could go out and get the best players, but he just said, remember, it's coming. There was money, but all he really cared about was winning. It was a winning. So the owner had a winning mentality, and that's all he cared about. What did he need? What decisions needed to be made to make Chelsea a winning team? And I've had the good fortune to spend a couple of long nights in the company of David Barnard. I think he's Chelsea sort of executive. Just everyone always went, oh no, Joe Wobble sitting next to, he's Tottenham, and this is going to be a bit interesting. But he's a very good guy, and you know, you just get talking to him about the Mourinho era. The first is has a wealth of knowledge. He started out, I think, at Fulham. Funny enough, I went to Wimbledon. He was at Chelsea when old Greybeard was there, so he was there before Abramovich even. But there's a steely determination about him, you know. It's a winning mentality. It helps when the owners of a club have that. That's what's kind of, it really helps. It sets the scene. We haven't got that at Tottenham. So Angie's just another thing that's happened on this road of being a loser club, being a club where we get our asses kicked by our lesser London neighbours, and we all leave, like, you know, with them all laughing their heads off. Do you know what I mean? Newcastle just gone 2-1 up, 2-0 up, by the way. So they're breaking their draw. It's offside. But they might well win that today. But anyway, you know, and they've not lost. They've not won anything since '69. I think they won the Fairs Cup, didn't they? Bobby Moncur. But anyway, that's kind of where we're at. So there has to be a change at the top, really. I think with Tottenham, that's what would really be needed. And I hope everybody I know who slags him off says we hope we're wrong. But we're like a boxer that has its guard down. We're wide open. I would like to see that midfield thickened up a little bit at times. You know, it's just one of the many things. You could make better use of Maddison. You get two midfielders behind him. You know, like tight, like sitting deep. You know, maybe even three. You know, maybe you've got enough. Once you've got your centre halves back to play 3 men at the back. Just thicken it up in midfield a little bit. Get the ball to him, you know, so you're playing to his footballing strengths a little bit, you know, for instance. But there's no chance. I don't think there's any chance of that happening, you know. And so here we are, last throw of the dice, really, with the Europa League, and you never know. Obviously, I'm hopeful, but that's my view with Tottenham is very much change has to come at the top. And then you have to change that into a winning, you know, some kind of winning mentality that you see with, you know, clubs like, you know, Liverpool with their owners. You know, there's a winning mentality there. They know they're in it to win it. You know, Tottenham are in it really to sort of be a well-run club that makes money. You know, but as I said earlier, they have scored again now, Isaac. You know, they're going to win this, I think, Newcastle. Anyway, that's where it's at. So there has to be change at the top. I think we all know that. We're a loser club. We're a joke club. We're not. We're a club you can just piss on. You know, we're just a club you can do what you like with. We're not a serious outfit. We're not a club to ever be respected. and we have a manager, you know, who I don't think good enough for the Premier League, and I don't think he can handle all the pressure that you get with the Premier League. So, you know, starts kind of saying the kind of things he said and digs a bit of a hole. Says too much at times with the press. You know, I've noticed he only got anything to say when they win a game. You know, when they lose, he hasn't got too much to say. You know, maybe that's understandable. But there you go. Just watching this goal. Sorry, Chris, but you know, this quite. Maybe this gives us hope. Newcastle can, after so many years, Isaac, great finish. Maybe they're going to pick a trophy up. Wouldn't we love that? But look, as Terry said earlier, actually, that was one of the things this year, which again I've seen so many times before. We go to Liverpool in a semi-final of a domestic cup, holding a 1-0 lead, and completely don't show up. Can't find a way to do it, you know. Against Villa in the FA Cup, just absolutely hopeless, you know. But we'll see. Don Howe, I'm going to say in support of what Adrian was saying. Don Howe, lots of injuries last year. Newcastle stuck with him. He's a bit dour, you know, but he's adapted well to things there, you know. I mean, he had this reputation, I think, for playing good attacking, sort of pressing football, but he's actually made Newcastle a very tough team to beat. You know, they're very condensed, compact team when they've not got the ball, and it looks like they're gonna do something. You know, so I'm very happy if I'm still alive and kicking next year to come on here when we're sitting second in the league or something, or first in the league with Ange at the helm, and go, cool, didn't I get that wrong? And I'll be delighted. I think it's all well and good going with a project manager and long term, but who's the actual project manager? It's Levy, isn't it? We've got this Langer in who doesn't seem as effective to me from afar as Paratici. So what I think will happen is Levy always, I think, has to have a confidant. It used to be David Pleat. I think Paratici, you'll go to Paratici, and Paratici, I would imagine, would want his own guy in there, you know. If you look at the acquisitions, at the recruitment this year, Johnson, you know, a lot of it's got the stamp of that our attacking lineup of the Championship about it with Solanke and Johnson. You know, I'm afraid to say it's a bit lightweight. Johnson hasn't really got a trick in him. You know, his main forte seems to get in at the far post. Well, today in the first half, the ball flashed across the goal, and he's standing there on the other side of the 6-yard box, just looking like, oh, the ball flashed across the goal. You think, son, you should have been in there. You should have dived in. You know. So I just don't. You know, he doesn't seem to have much of a trick in him. I think there one big miss. I think is Kulusevski at the moment. I know he's not, yet again, not everybody's cup of tea, but I think he's a good footballer, Kulusevski. You can play him out wide, you can play him as a 10. He's a decent player. But he's faded badly this year. Bentancur, you know, I wonder what it'd be like with a gaffer coming in. And I would have got rid of Ange weeks ago. And you get a gaffer in who does what Harry Redknapp did with the when he come in for that Norwich game when we beat him. I think Dembele scored, didn't he? And he had such a good squad, Redknapp. And you just get hold of the senior pros like Bentancur and Maddison, and you say, come on, you can do better than this. What's the fucking problem? What's the problem? And get them to, you know, let's start. You can play better than this. You're better than this, you know. And do something. And that's kind of what we'd had one day. Ramos on a bad losing streak after having won the League Cup, you know. And that's what you'd like to see. That you know, you get more from the squad than we're getting. But you know, forget Harry Kane. We don't have a Sissoko now. We don't have anyone who can run with the ball. Manana. We don't have, you know, any of these strong players with this strong physicality. So I saw it today. I saw it in that Chelsea game when they beat us 4-1. That Chelsea one, it's not the narrative people want to hear. They won 4-1. We got too emotional. Players getting sent off, but they started to really match us physically, and more than match us physically. And we have a tendency to get bullied. It's an old Tottenham thing of getting bullied. But today, just, you know, getting shrugged off the ball a lot. You know, not the worst I've ever seen with Tottenham, but enough. You know, there's a lack of physicality there at times. I think Bergvall's come on well in regard to that. You know.
Jar, I asked you about the starting 11. I think you've covered every subject over the last 30 years concerning Tottenham Hotspur Football Club.
Sorry, mate. Yeah.
Can I just address one thing Josh said about the hindsight? Actually before that, Chris, who do you think has the capacity to go on longer monologues? Is it Ja or Ricky Norwood? Because I'm amazed. That was impressive.
I don't know. All I know is I've got a headache.
So Ja, can I just?
I didn't swear much. I didn't swear much today though, Ricky. I'm trying to rein the swearing in, so that's good.
Yeah. So John, my wife took the kids out so I could do the podcast, but I don't think my kids will be able to watch the podcast because of the
No. So, I'm sorry. Yeah, I do tend to F and blind a bit because I'd still give a fuck about it, you know. And I do. Of course. Today, I mean, I've had how many times have I walked out of Loftus Road, out of Craven Cottage, Crystal Palace, you know, when we were under Nuno, we got smashed 3-0. These, you know, lesser London teams, and they love it, obviously giving it to us, kicking us up the arse, you know, and it just should, you know, if only we had a chairman who took that personally as I do, you know. Yeah, again, so massive Spurs turnout today, all absolutely gutted and upset at the end, you know.
So John, can I just address one thing about the hindsight? Because honestly, what Ange said there really resonated with me, in that I feel like today's game, it's easy to look back in hindsight and say, like you said, that they picked the wrong lineup here. But I feel like when he gets it right, no one ever says anything. So if just back to Thursday's game, I think a lot of people thought in Thursday's game that either Tell should start at right wing or Johnson should start at right wing, and Odegaard goes and scores 2 goals for us. But he doesn't get the credit for that. If Odegaard had started and had a terrible game and we had lost, then you know that we would have heard the criticism from Ange. So that's where I think it's a bit unfair with the hindsight. Like the hindsight only seems to come one way, when it's negative hindsight versus anything positive. Yeah.
Terry, let me come to you. Go on, Joe. What are you going to say?
Where are you, Terry? By the way, you in America?
Yes, in the New York area. Yeah.
Whereabouts?
It's right outside the city, in the suburbs of New York City. That's it.
Oh, New York, yeah, great. No, that's just I love America. I always wish I was in America. I could have got a green card, why didn't I do it, mate? But no, and Adrian's in Australia, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm on.
Nice one.
But I'm on some freezing cold stairs in West London.
Yeah, well, I know. Yeah, but I jog back here. But with the hindsight thing, no, I would say, you know, actually we were saying he made a good call with Odegaard. But listen, I think they made a bad call with Manor Solomon, because I think Manor Solomon was the best winger we had at the club. He's putting up trees in the Championship this year, and we let him go. Maybe it was political, I don't know, but you know. Odegaard coming done well, and we all praised that the goal they scored the other night was an Ange ball goal. You know, that the winning goal from the third goal from Odegaard was sort of classic Ange ball back to front. Well, you know, not too different to Conte ball when it was working. So that was great to see. But what pleased me the most that night was Vicario telling all the defence, no, go off, pushed them up and went long. And I thought, wow, that's great, because I want to see us go long a bit more, you know. Solanke, I've seen a lot of Spurs fans saying, you know, anyone who slags him off doesn't understand football. And I think Solanke works really hard. He's a hard worker. But for me, bit bread and butter. You know, very hard act to follow, Harry Kane, you know. And I can see why he got him. He's a good first-time finisher and all that, you know. But there is a lot of deficiencies there.
Joe, on that note, we're going to play a short clip now. This is what Dominic Solanke made of today's game.
Dom, thanks for joining us. End up 2-0. I mean, look, it's fairly tight until they scored 2 late goals, really, didn't they? I mean, how did you sum it all up?
It's a difficult one to take. Obviously, coming from that game in the week, we wanted to try to build on that today, kind of build a bit of momentum and go on a bit of a streak, but we didn't quite manage to do that. Like you said, they managed to score first quite late on in the game, and it kind of killed us.
Yeah, I mean, we wanted a bit of momentum, didn't we, coming out of Thursday? And look, we knew it was going to be difficult here. It always is at Craven Cottage, but 0-0 going into the last sort of quarter of the game, you're sort of hoping it falls for you, aren't you?
Yeah, for sure. I think we pride ourselves on being a fit team that can run the whole 90 minutes, and a lot of the time that works in our favour. We can kind of, like I said, at the end of the game, try and steamroll them a bit, but like I said, they scored first, and it kind of killed our momentum.
Yeah. How do the players find it? Obviously, you're bouncing from Europe to Premier League, highs on Thursday against AZ, and obviously now we come here and it's a bit of a low. How are you finding it as a group?
Yeah, obviously it's difficult. We don't really want to be that team that's great one day and bad another day, so we need to try find that consistency. Because like I said, we want to win every game, so we need to try build and find that consistency.
Let's hope we do. Cheers, Dom.
Terry, let's come to you. I've made a decision that I'm not going to go through all of these match incidents today. We've been speaking at length about a number of different subjects. Let's talk about the goals, because Muniz scored for Fulham, making it 1-0 after 79 minutes. Now, we failed to clear the ball, and then, of course, they went into the final third, went into the 18-yard box. It was 1-0 after 79 minutes. What did you make of this goal that we conceded?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was completely against the run of play. I think it's right when Fulham started to get some momentum back that I think really was started. It's around, there was one point around the 76th minute or so where we were on a breakaway and the ball hit Madison, I think, in the back of the ankle, and then Fulham countered back and had a couple of nice shots, and then that kind of seemed to give them life. Even this goal here, I mean, you can't. Yeah, I think it was Bentancur and Gray who were on him. I think they could have closed him down a bit more, but it was a really nice, just quick turn and flick from Muniz. I mean, that guy kills us. I mean, he killed us last year at Craven Cottage as well. This year, he was a complete game changer, and I think that just seemed to just suck the whole energy out of it. Because I really felt like at that point, we were more likely to score the first goal than they.
If I go back, actually, Terry, here, Wilson Odegaard had only just come onto the pitch replacing Tell, and he had three players around him. He tried to take all the players on. I suppose this is, a young player trying to impress. Of course, he had a great night at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on Thursday against AZ Alkmaar, but really you cannot be trying to take three players on in this position, because it did actually then result in the first goal for Fulham.
I honestly hadn't realized that this was how that whole play started. I didn't remember it starting through Odegaard, but yeah, I completely agree. I mean, maybe he felt like he had just come on, he was fresh. Maybe like he is a great dribbler. We've seen him make some amazing runs, just in Thursday's game. So maybe he thought that could spark a fast break for us. But seeing this still now, of course, that is super dangerous, and a little reckless. Yeah.
Terry, just staying with you for a little bit. Talking about Christian Romero's performance today, what do you make of him? Because I've said in the last couple of podcasts that I've wanted to see that Christian Romero that we used to see, of him being so much more aggressive. We saw him have that aggressive nature at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on Thursday over Troy Parrott. I think that we saw that again today in him. Of course, he's going to go off on international duty with the Argentina national team. Again, he's been heavily criticised by the Tottenham Hotspur fan base of him going off on international duty. But I felt like we've seen a different Christian Romero, since coming back from his injury. Very similar to seeing a different Vicario, a real leader in Vicario since his injury as well.
I loved Romero today. I thought he was great. I thought he was really aggressive in the back. One thing I forgot about Romero, I think we all know what his strengths and his faults can be, especially sometimes with his temper and his temperament. I forgot how good his distribution was. I mean, he is a really, really good passer from the back for a center back. which is why I think a lot of us have kind of wondered if he could work in that pivot role as a number 6. Seeing that Romero back, I mean, he's been clearly rusty the previous 2 games. It seems like that rust is starting to come off. I got to tell you, when he went down for about 30 seconds, I did hold my breath for a bit. But then the other side of me thought, you know, if he is hurt and post comes off, maybe he won't go off on international duty and just rest for the 2 weeks. But I love seeing that Romero back. There was a foul on Tell in the second half, and Romero got in right. I forgot who fouled Tell, but he got right in his face. And we need more people like that. We need tough guys. We need people who are going to be a bit of a bully, who have some of that shithousery in them. Because we have a lot of soft players, if we're being honest, right? Like, we need more players who've got that strong spine, like Romero. I mean, there were parts of the game where he even got, you know, he got into it with a couple of players. I think everyone's going to point out that Bassi, where Bassi kind of threw him off, but that was great. At least he's getting in there. At least he's trying. So you're not going to win every battle, but like he sticks his chin in there, and that's, you got to respect that. With this Romero and the Van de Ven that we started to see coming back, with the 2 of them back, if Solanke stays healthy, and we get Kulusevski back, Ja, I know you're not as hopeful, but I will take that lineup and that team combined with some of the people that we've seen here over any team in the Europa League. I really will.
You make good points, Till, about Romero's distribution. That was lovely. Not so much today, but in the week, playing those really firm balls into feet, especially Solanke. Just makes sense of playing out from the back, and you know, just those firmly hit side-footed passes. But you know, it's good. It's great to hear your optimism. I think there's a definite difference between America and this. Americans are much more okay. Let's do this shit. Let's fucking believe, man. And we're bitter and ironic and sarcastic, you know. So I'm more like the fucking typical. They always let you down. Let's go and have a cup of tea. They're crap, you know. It's a bit more like that. But joking apart, very happy to see Romero. His aggression, as Chris was saying, was fantastic. You know, it was good to see. And Van de Ven, obviously, we just want him back. It does worry me. This is a long-term issue. To be this nursed, you know, it starts to remind me of Ledley King's knee. Do you know what I mean, Chris? You know, it starts like he'll only play every major game, you know, every game in 6 or something. But hopefully it's not a really, really serious problem. But yeah, back to, as I said earlier, the Odeberg goal. Yeah, someone's got to say, son, in those kind of games, you don't try and run your way out. Fucking clear your lines, clear your bloody lines, and that's fine if you do that, you know.
Adrian, let's come to you now. Ange Postecoglou has heavily criticised Bissouma today. He said, "I feel Biss sometimes lets the game drift by him. He needs to be more dominant. Today we needed more in that position. I had needed him to play because he hasn't played a lot. At the same time, I need him to perform. It is safe to say maybe Biss and a few guys lack a bit of confidence, but at this stage of the season, we need people to perform." Are you surprised that Ange Postecoglou has criticised Bissouma in this way publicly?
It's only the second time he's done that. The other one was when he criticised Timo Werner in an earlier match. I guess a little bit, but then again, I don't know what question he was asked, so I don't want to sort of take it out of context. It might have been a very specific question about Bissouma. I think it's a fair analysis of Bissouma's game. You know, I was actually really impressed in the first 10 games of Ange's first season. I thought Bissouma was quite important to us. But he's fallen away quite dramatically. Yeah. And I thought it was quite a measured thing that Ange has just said there, but I said I haven't heard the question, so I don't know whether he could have avoided mentioning Bissouma at all, or whether it was a specific question about Bissouma, in which case I think it's reasonable that he answers the question. And I think he's accurately described what's happened to Bissouma's game. certainly this season. He seems to find it difficult to. He's there for solidity, I think, primarily, and he hasn't provided that. And then when he's on the ball, he's given the ball away in critical moments, which has really hurt us. So it sounds to me like, I mean, I think he said there he's lacking a bit of confidence. So that doesn't surprise me. And I think Ange said a couple of weeks ago that those of us who are on the outside only see about 5% of what's really going on. Mm-hmm. So yes, I'm sitting here going, yes, I would have loved to have seen Van de Ven start, and I would have loved to have seen Odegaard start, and I would have loved to have seen Son and Maddison start in this game. But I'm not out there on the training track. I'm not seeing everything that's going on behind the scenes. I do know that we've been in a major injury crisis, and you can't just expect players to come back and click your fingers and suddenly there's cohesion and understanding among the players in that team. I had every expectation today that we were going to, have some difficulties with cohesion, and I'm with Jar. I would have liked to have seen a stronger lineup, and with you, Chris, but I get the context. And so, but with respect to Bissouma, it's only the second time he's singled out a player in a comment after a game like that in a negative way. But it sounds to me like it's a bit of a measured thing that he's said.
Adrian, let's stay with you because let's talk about Fulham's second goal. It had to be Ryan Sessegnon, didn't it? Literally seconds after him coming on. Sessegnon makes it 2-0 to Fulham. What did you make of the goal?
Well, look, I was still swearing about the fact that we didn't get a penalty with the trip on Bergvall in the box, which I thought it was just a clear penalty every day of the week. So I think here's my analysis of that moment. I thought that Ben Davies kind of was not as strong as he needed to be, but some of those things happen. I think after I analysed it on the replay, though, the problem that really happened there was that Jed Spence, instead of going back quickly to help Ben Davies in a one-on-one, kind of just remained in a static position, expecting that Davies was going to get the ball so he could then deliver to him. And it just left us exposed. And then, what can I say? Dr. Tottenham, we let go of Sessegnon and he scores against us. It was, I'm happy for Sessegnon, but just as I said, this is like 142 year, a Groundhog Day, that moment. So, but yeah, I thought Spence needed to get back and support Davies there. He and if you look at the replay, he was just sort of watching and waiting for Davies to win the ball and release it. And we need to be much more, we need to sort of defend in numbers, not just one-on-one on the edge of the box.
Jar, is there anything else you'd like to add about today's game?
Come on, I said to me, mate, he'll score. And the same way when I went to Goodison Park the other week, and I said to me mate, who's an Evertonian, that Calvert-Lewin, he said, he's not, he just can't score at the top. I said he'll score today. And when Sessegnon come on, I said he'll score, and it happened. So a typical Tottenham. What can you say, Chris? That's just a typical. I remember going there, Craven Cottage, on a real cold winter. We got done 1-0. Who was that under? Maybe even Redknapp, So I've seen us not turn up in these games. Maybe that's Pochettino, probably Redknapp though, or maybe Sherwood. There's been so many, It's just a typical away defeat, I've seen that so many times. Just pretty, no Ange ball today, no strong identity today. We are what we are. Where we are in the league is where we belong to be. Fulham are not the finished article. They lack a really accomplished scorer. I think if don't we all? Don't they all? But we're as a team, we are a mid-table to lower table Premier League team. If we played Leeds United tomorrow, they'd probably beat us. So that's where we're at. We're, you know, the squad's not as good as what people maybe thought it was. We've got a manager who I think is a bit out of his depth. Apart from that, Chris, and we've got terrible owners. But apart from that, I think everything's quite positive at the moment.
Well, we've definitely had chalk and cheese opinions on this podcast this evening, especially in the comments as well. Jar, thanks so much for joining us this evening. Tell everyone where they can find you on social media and what you're up to at the moment. Any more tours coming up?
Yeah, got out again in April around the UK, and then we got doing around Europe and the world in later on in the year, in autumn, in the fall, as Americans say. And yeah, I'm on a record with Sampa, you know, the rapper guy. We've got a track out called "Losing You." It's on XL Records. Richard Russell. It's a really good track. Got a couple of great female performers on that as well, playing guitar and trumpet, really good. And I've got a new single out with Ken Booth, the old reggae legend. Is It 'Cause I'm Black? You know, which is out, a new single that's out. So yeah, still ruining me life, bothering to watch Tottenham play. You know, yeah.
Well, Jar, thank you so much for your time. We look forward to talking to you again very soon before the season's out. And thank you so much. Terry, thank you so much for coming back on the Spurs Chat podcast. I know it's very difficult talking about these defeats, especially this season. It's been up and down. It's been difficult. But thank you so much. Where can people find you? What you're up to at the moment?
So again, not really big on social media in terms of what I'm up to. So my family and I are going to be on holiday in France in the middle of April, and I'm trying to figure out a way to get away for 2 days to get to Frankfurt to get to that game. So I am actively trying to find a way to break away from the family, maybe bring my older son for that game. But that's how excited I am for the Europa League going forward. So that's what I'm up to. Thank you again for having me. Ja, Adrian, it was an absolute pleasure speaking with you gentlemen. Thank you.
Terry, Adrian, pleasure meeting you both, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. And Adrian, thank you so much for coming back. And I've no doubt you've got to get some sleep before you go to work today. So thank you so much for your time.
He's an Aussie. Aussies just get on with it. They don't complain. They're tough. They're not whinging poms like we are.
Adrian, did you want to talk about your news or should we save it?
Oh, no, I just it was great hearing that Jar's still putting music out. I can't wait to hear that music, Jar. I've always been a fan of yours, and it's such
Thanks, mate.
Such a privilege to be on the podcast with you. Just really special moment for me. So, and we might not have shared all the same views on this today, but
and listen, yeah. Newcastle look like they're going to win this game. So Newcastle are ending a drought of trophies much longer than ours. So it can be done. It can be. They're completely bossing Liverpool, by the way.
Right. So that takes me to the word believe. We've had the word believe a few times here on this podcast. But, yeah, so apart from being a lawyer, I've been a songwriter for many years and done that professionally, but it's kind of like a side hobby. And as I shared with Chris a while ago, I wrote a song a little while ago called Believe, which is about the club. And it's kind of like, aspiring to be our version of Liverpool's You'll Never Walk Alone. And anyway, so I've just posted in the last 24 hours a version of it, an unofficial version with me and my brothers singing it under the tree in Adelaide. You can see it on Tottenham Believers is what we're called. So on YouTube, on Instagram and on Facebook, we're called Tottenham Believers, and the song's called Believe. And anyone who still has some belief in our team might like to check it out, and I hope you enjoy it. We've got an official recorded version, studio version, with a great singer from Adelaide called Andy Seymour, who's the featured vocalist on it. And that'll be coming out in a little while. But in the meantime, I've been singing it with a whole bunch of people. It's going to unofficially, and with the ukulele and the guitar and stuff. And so if you want to check that out, you can see it on Tottenham Believers on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook. And it's a fun little project, and it's keeping us somehow in the spirit of hope in what is a very, very dark season. And, the thing about that, Jar, is that even in the darkest times, music can lift us, and that's really what the purpose of that song is. That one way or the other, if we believe and stick together, we can find a way.
Yeah, I don't ask me to believe all the way with Ange, otherwise I'll start to feel I'm in a cult. You know, I don't know if you all saw the it was a bit of a take on the Jehovah's Witness, you know, with a load of straight-looking people with like really straight clothes knocking on. Can we speak to you a moment about Ange Postecoglou? You know, I thought it was a really funny meme. You know.
Well, Adrian, best of luck with that, and of course we will be featuring the song on this channel in the very near future. So everyone look out for that. I'm sure that'll be great. So best of luck with that.
Yeah, good luck with that, Adrian, and have a lovely holiday, Terry, as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jar.
Great
to catch up with you, Terry. All the best. Thanks, Chris.
Chris, thank you. Sorry, I was late, pal. After telling you I'll be there in time, I've got a gap right near it, and blah blah.
Don't worry. Adrian, Jar, Terry, thank you so much for your time. I know it's never easy talking about defeat, but we will be back in a couple of weeks' time when we face Chelsea in the Premier League away at Stamford Bridge. Enjoy the international break, everyone, and we will see you again soon. Come on, you Spurs.
Can I just say, Cole Palmer is out of form and due a goal. Dr. Tottenham will be ready in 2 weeks' time. Sorry. See you all later.